Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Sonal Rajpal. Students, today I am going to explain what are metals and what is non-metals. You know students, as of now we have discovered 118 elements and some elements categorized as metals, some are non-metals and some are metalloids. And you know students, every element is made up of similar atoms and the atom stability which I already explained in my previous video is octet rule and the duplet rule. Means if in octet rule, if the last shell of the atom of the element have 8 electrons, either by losing or gaining electrons, it is stable. And the duplet rule is only for the hydrogen and helium. They must have 2 electrons in the valence shell. And you know students, to complete the octet, we always need to think minimum adding and removal of electrons from the valence shell of an atom to acquire stability, because student, it is easier for the atom to gain minimum and to lose minimum electrons to complete its octet. And the atom stability is octet rule for all the element except for hydrogen and helium, which always follow duplet rule, means have 2 electrons in the valence shell. And you know students, what are metals? Metals are those elements which have 1, 2, 3 electrons in a valence shell of the atom. So the metal always loses electrons to acquire stability, to complete its octet, because it is easier for the metal element to lose 1, 2 or 3 electrons. So students, metal always loses electrons to acquire stability and complete its octet. For example, I'll take the example of sodium. Sodium electronic configuration is 281, means it has 1 electrons in the last shell. So it is easier for the sodium to lose this 1 electrons and complete its octet. So student, here you can see this sodium loses 1 electrons and it acquire its stability by having 8 electrons in the L shell. And you know student, when the atom loses 1 electrons, it will become an ions. Ions are the charged particles, and these metal element always loses electrons and it will acquire a positive charge, means it will become a cations. Because students, metal by losing electrons become positively charged particles, and these positively charged particles are called as cations. And you know students, metals are also called as electropositive elements, because metals after losing electrons they acquire a positive charge. That's why these are called as electropositive element. And you know students, what are non-metals? Non-metals are those elements having 5, 6, 7 electrons in the valence shell. So they can attain stability by gaining electrons and complete its octet rather than by losing electrons. For example, I'll take the example of chlorine. In chlorine students, its electronic configuration is 287. So it is easier for the chlorine to gain 1 electrons and will become and negatively charged particles, which is called as anion. So students, I can say chlorine gains 1 electrons and complete its octet and acquires stability. And the non-metals always form negatively charged particles, which are called as anions, by gaining electrons. And because non-metals are gaining electrons, these are also called as electronegative elements. And those elements which has 4 or 8 electrons in the valence shells, they are also categorized as non-metal students. And you know, exception is for hydrogen and helium, which follows duplet rule to acquire stability. They are also considered as non-metals. So in conclusion, I can say student, metal always loses electrons and forms cations, means positively charged particles. So metals are called as electropositive element, and non-metals always gain electrons students and they becomes anions, means negatively charged particles. And non-metals are also called as electronegative elements. Thank you students. Please subscribe my channel for more informative videos. Science classes at the rate Dr. Sonal Rajpal 123.